Hello dear listeners, and welcome back to my cozy little corner of the internet. In the last episode, Eric finally managed to get Jasper to come out of his shell and help him build something on the beach, only to be snatched away. In this episode, we will continue this tense story. So, grab your favourite beverage, sit back, relax, and I shall begin. Chapter 2. The Search. Jasper had finished the sign and was adjusting it so that it would fit on the monument. He looked at it and frowned and would make slight adjustments to its position. When he was satisfied, he took a step back and looked at it proudly. Not too bad, he remarked happily as he rested his hands on his hips. Probably your finest work, Jasper, and no one is around to see it. He quickly shook that thought out of his head. It wasn't for others anyway. It was for Eric. Where is he anyway? He questioned as he looked at his watch. He should be back by now. Did he get lost? He looked around trying to find signs of his friend, and he grew increasingly concerned. He took his phone out of his pocket and dialed a number, but there was no answer. He tried again, and it went to voicemail. Jasper let out a frustrated sigh as he put his phone back in his pocket. I should go look for him. Jasper ran back down the beach and made his way into town. He started calling out Eric's name and asking around town if anyone had seen him. Some of the people shook their heads, while others informed him that they had seen Eric going towards the shops. Jasper picked up the pace and made his way to the shops. He entered each one and started asking around. They told him that they had seen him browsing, but didn't buy anything before leaving. Jasper soon entered the bait shop. It was the last shop on the block, so he hoped that Eric was there. But when he looked around the small shop, he couldn't find him. He then approached the counter. Excuse me, I'm looking for my friend. He has bright red hair, blue eyes, and he was wearing a purple hoodie. The shop clerk listened patiently to Jasper's description and nodded. I saw him, he answered cheerfully. He bought a hook and a lure, though he didn't seem interested in any live bait. Quite odd, really. Jasper chuckled a little to himself. He wasn't a fan of live bait either. He didn't even like fishing, though he didn't say that out loud. Great! How long ago was that? The store clerk folded his arms and looked up at the ceiling. Let's see now. I believe it was about an hour ago. Great. Jasper muttered to himself. Was Eric on his way back and he just missed him? Did he go somewhere else first? If so, why didn't he just call? Do you know which way he went after he stepped outside? The clerk nodded. He went right first, but then I saw him walk past in the opposite direction a minute later. This made Jasper even more confused. Why would he go one way and then change his mind and go the other way? Did he forget something? Was something drawing him away? No, he couldn't think like that. It was over, wasn't it? It had been over for weeks, and now this? He took a few deep breaths to keep himself calm. No use in jumping to conclusions yet. Eric probably got lost. Yeah, that was probably it. Jasper had plastered a smile back on his face as he gazed at the store clerk once more. Thanks for your help. You're welcome. And I hope you find your friend. So do I, mister. So do I. Jasper whispered under his breath as he walked out of the shop and looked around. The clerk said Eric walked right. Jasper reminded himself as he turned to face right. Let's go back towards the beach. He walked a couple of paces and stopped, but then a minute later, he turned around and went the other way. He turned left and frowned. What happened to make him turn around? He started to walk left. Maybe he would find something that could help him find Eric. He crossed the road and just saw more shops. Not really anything of interest, so he knew it couldn't have been the shops. He walked past them and stopped when he saw an alleyway. It was dark, even in daylight. He made a few gestures with his hand, creating a ball of light. He peered into the alley, holding the ball of light in front of him. Eric? Are you in here? He called out as he looked around, though it appeared that the alley was empty. He stepped in further and took another look around. Eric, this isn't funny. You've been gone a while, man. He took a step forward when he heard something under his foot. He looked down and saw a bag on the ground. He used a levitation spell to lift it up and catch it. He then opened the bag and saw a hook and a fishing lure inside. The store clerk said he bought a lure and a hook, he whispered as he sighed. He was on his way back, but something lured him to this alley. Now he's gone. Jasper searched the alley one more time to try and find signs of Eric or anyone else in the alley. There was nothing, and the alley was very much deserted now. Jasper looked down at the ground. What happened to you, Eric? Jasper walked out of the alley and found himself back on the street again. He had so many questions. There was one thing he was certain of. Eric didn't go anywhere by choice. He was taken. He leaned against the wall, trying to steady his breathing. Was it happening again? He thought that it would be over. He had hoped it was all over. Things had started to go back to normal again. He was finally able to fall asleep in his own bed, comforted by the knowledge that he wouldn't be enticed by a song to somewhere else. He then remembered Eric's words after they were rescued from the ship. I won't lie. It's most likely not going to be over. Mel gave up way too easily for my liking. We may end up having to deal with this again at some point, but we'll deal with it. If and when it happens. No point in worrying about it now. Mel, Jasper whispered as he clenched his hands into fists. It couldn't be a coincidence. Eric disappeared the moment he was on his own. He had thought about contacting the authorities about this, but they wouldn't even begin investigating until 24 hours had passed. Not their choice. It was simply standard procedure. Besides, they would simply ask if it was possible that Eric had left of his own accord, which sure, that was possible. But Eric had even told him that he planned to stay, at least for a while, and he never said anything about leaving. If Eric was planning to leave, he would have said something, right? He was so excited about going to the beach to build that monument. That doesn't sound like something he would say if he was planning to leave, Jasper reasoned as he looked down at the bag he was holding. He intended to return. Why would he buy this if he didn't? He certainly wouldn't leave it behind. I bet his stuff is still at home, too. He took another deep breath as his jumbled thoughts returned to Mel. She knows something. She has to, he muttered as he let out a frustrated sigh. Great. That means I'll have to talk to her again. I really didn't want to. It was true that what she did still hurt him. She was a friend to his face, but had been plotting behind his back. As far as he was concerned, they were done, and he hoped that she wouldn't return to school after summer was over. But Eric was gone, and not of his own free will. He could be in trouble, and Jasper couldn't live with the guilt if anything happened to him. Eric went through a lot too, and deserved a normal life. Jasper took more deep breaths to calm himself enough to think straight. He knew what he needed to do, though it pained him to do it. But right now, Eric's life was more important than his comfort. He took one last deep breath and walked down the street towards Mel's house. Mel's home was much further from the beach than his own, and was quite an uphill climb. Fortunately, the tram went that way, so he was able to take it most of the way. He got off the tram at the stop closest to her house, and then practically ran the rest of the way. When he arrived, he opened the gate and ran up the path, past a beautiful and well-kept garden. The house wasn't large, but was still a decent size and was in great condition. Mel's family clearly took care of it, or they hired people to do it for them, which was fine. Of course, Jasper didn't really care much about the garden or the decor of the house. He was there for one thing and one thing only, to speak to Mel, and he had to do it quickly before he had second thoughts. Fortunately, Eric's disappearance was a strong motivator to get this done. He banged loudly on the door. Etiquette went out of the window at that moment, but the matter was urgent. He heard footsteps approaching the door, and when it opened, he saw Mel. Her hair tied back into a messy ponytail, and her green eyes were glaring. Bang on that door like that again, and I'll... She paused mid-rant when she saw Jasper standing at the door. Jasper, she uttered, her eyes growing wide. What brings you here? Jasper had ignored her surprise and quickly asked a question of his own. Are your parents home? He looked past Mel into the hallway to try and see if anyone was in. Mel shook her head. They're at work. I'm alone. Jasper pushed past Mel and made his way into the house. He knew it was rude, but he didn't really have the time. Nor did he care about being polite to someone who had betrayed his trust. Good. We need to talk. He spoke rather abruptly, something that he didn't usually do around her. However, she didn't let that surprise her this time. Mel just sighed and shook her head. The scowl was back on her face. Sure. Come right in, she muttered sarcastically as she closed the door behind him. She quickly led him down the hallway into the living room. It was quite a cosy room. Two leather sofas were in the middle of the room. The TV was on, but it was on some random channel, as if Mel had just wanted something on in the background. There was an old fireplace, but due to it being summer, it wasn't on. Mel turned to face Jasper. On the one hand, she was happy that Jasper was there, but at the same time she was annoyed by his abruptness and pushing his way inside. What do you want to talk about? Jasper looked her right in the eye. His amber-coloured eyes were harsh and held none of their usual warmth, which admittedly made Mel feel uneasy. Where is Eric? This is the end of today's episode. Jasper really didn't want to have to deal with Mel so soon, but with Eric missing, he didn't have a choice. Does Mel know something? Will she be willing to give that information up? Tune into the next episode to find out.